Rolling there. Good. Okay, cool. So if I hide the screen.
Everything's
So,
there.
I was going to say, the shot's there. We could put the... Do we want a logo on the screen? Too much, isn't it?
That'd be pretty funny though.
So, deep dive into Smith and Brewer.
Who are we? Why are we here?
Who are we? Why indeed are we? Why are any of us here?
Why is there something rather than nothing?
So interview. Okay, that's yeah. We are here in my little studio at home.
My little studio, like My Little Pony.
Like My Little Pony. We that's it. Only just slightly bigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here in my little home studio where it's like Smith and Brewer HQ for many things.
Where the songs are written.
I was going to say, this is where we had our first like jam and writing session, where we wrote our first song.
Yeah. And pretty much all of them.
And a lot of them ever since,
subsequently.
Yeah. Just, yeah, at the end of my garden. It's a lot tidier now than it was when we first started here, but...
It's a lot tidier than it was 2 hours ago.
That's very true. That's very true. So, but yeah. So this is where we write a lot of our songs and have recorded various bits and mixed things and all that kind of stuff. So we should interview each other.
Okay. All right. How did you get into guitar?
Well, I got into guitar because when I was 9, at the school I was at, you got free instrumental lessons. And I really wanted to play the banjo. But there was no banjo teacher. Right. So I started doing guitar lessons because there was a guitar teacher. And the idea was that I would eventually switch from guitar to banjo. And
that's yet to happen.
That's yet to happen. There's a thing there, but that's actually a guitar banjo, so that's a cheat. Right. But yeah, which it turns out, in a twist, the reason I wanted to play banjo was because the background music on the Anthony Aardvark, which was a cartoon that was in the Pink Panther cartoon when I was a kid, the background music was ragtime banjo.
Okay.
But actually, I listened to it recently. It's not ragtime banjo, it's ragtime banjo guitar.
Ah, so the dream came true. The Anthony Aardvark.
No, it was in the original Pink Panther cartoons, which had meet the Pink Panther with the kid driving that weird 70s sports car. Have you ever seen that? It's probably before your time.
I can't say I have.
Like, it was old when I was watching it.
Right.
But it would have been even older when you were watching it, if you watched it. But in the cartoon, there was like the Pink Panther cartoon, and then there was other cartoons like in the middle.
Okay.
And one was the ant and the aardvark.
Right.
The aardvark was trying to eat the ant, but there was ragtime banjo, kind of like Gary Davis style ragtime banjo in the background.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was how I got into the guitar. That's how I got into the guitar, and then because of that, because I started playing, my next door neighbour at the time was a massive Clapton fan.
Okay.
So my dad told him I was playing the guitar, and he's like, "Oh, he must listen to Eric Clapton." So I listened to Clapton and then B.B. King, and B.B. King was where I really got hooked on guitar as a thing.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
How did you get into guitar?
So, I got into guitar because basically I just wanted to be like my older brother, really, because he was in a punk rock band called the Subterranean Squids.
Excellent name.
They used to rehearse in my mum and dad's house, and I used to just hang out with. I had a little ukulele that I sort of hung out with them, and and then a few years later, my brother bought me my first guitar for my birthday.
What was it?
It was a Argos Special nylon string.
Nice.
Still have it. It's pretty beaten up, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's how I got into it. And my mum and dad had an excellent record collection of like all the original Stones and Beatles records and Buddy Holly and Everly Brothers, and that's kind of what started me off, really. And then progressed onto the usual stuff, Hendrix, and then became a teenager and got into all the shred and heavy metal, and and here we are. Yeah,
exactly. The natural progression.
Natural progression.
Like acoustic duo. That's cool. I've still got my first guitar, which was my mum's. My mum had played briefly when she was a kid, and she still had her old classical guitar, which I've still got, which is a really 1964
It is nice.
Yairi, classical, which is cool. But how did you get into folk guitar? Do you want to go first on that?
Yeah, all right. Well, to be honest, that's something that I've probably got into more the longer we've played together, really. Because I've got more of a jazz background, really. So I spent several years studying jazz guitar quite in depth, and then progressed onto songwriting. So I suppose I kind of got into it through that sort of songwriting route and more of a accompaniment thing. And then, but I've had sort of big phases of getting into certain folk musics like bluegrass and that kind of stuff. Went through a big Tony Rice phase. But again, that kind of coincides with the time that we were sort of playing together, really. How did you get into folk guitar?
Well, I got into folk guitar because my dad used to run a folk club in the 60s. And my godfather, who still runs a... well, now they do kind of CDs and stuff. Actually, they do vinyl as well, but they're a pressing plant. So he was working for a company who made a lot of folk albums for Transatlantic Records,
right,
and pressed them up. So often copies of those records would end up in my parents' collection. A real mixed bag of stuff, but very folky. They didn't really listen to music around the house when I was a kid, but there was all these records. And when I started playing guitar, I just started going through them. Like there were some obviously like guitar ones, and I would say the first like kind of real folky record I remember liking was the Contemporary Guitar Sampler Volume 2.
Right.
Very specific. I've still got it.
Nice.
But it was a collection of like the contemporary folk guitarists who were around at the time. So it's people, there's Bert Jansch, John Remborn, Ralph McTell. So that was cool. Gordon Giltrap, Stefan Grossman, someone else I think on there as well. But that's the kind of first record I remember really liking that had acoustic guitar on it. And from there, I kind of worked my way through the record collection. So there were other records in that collection by like Pentangle. So it was John Remborn and Bert Jansch. And then I just kind of read up on it from there. I went through a massive John Remborn and John Martin phase. Heavily into John Martin for a long time and saw him play like half a dozen times. Yeah, like altered tunings and stuff, like the Dadgad stuff was from John as well, who gave me a copy of a Richard Thompson Strict Tempo in his instrumental album. Yeah. And there's a tune on there that I worked out in Dadgad. Yeah, and then and also around the same kind of time as my John Martin, John Remborn thing, when I was a teenager, there was a guy came and joined the school I was at. He was a couple of years older than me, and he played like folk mandola.
Right. Cool.
And and he was really good, like mandola and mandolin, really good player. Knew loads of tunes, and basically saw me playing acoustic guitar one lunchtime. Was like, you're going to play folk music with me? It's like, yeah, okay. So it was great because he was older and he could drive, and I couldn't drive. So he would come pick me up and take me to all these folk clubs, and we'd do like the sessions and stuff, and we'd occasionally get floor spots. Yeah, and it was the 90s, so I could, I wasn't old enough to drive, but I was old enough to drink in a lot of those pubs, like unofficially, because no one expects, underage people at a folk club. Yeah, so we had a lot of, and so that was that, and I got into, heavily into blues, all the other stuff too, but folk and kind of steel string guitar.
That's cool.
Has always been there as well.
Yeah.
How did we meet?
Well, we met
thanks to
Joan Ulmer Trading. In 2015, was it?
It was, yeah.
She did a thing where on every date of her tour she had a different local support act.
Yeah, the local talent thing. She did it in 2012 was the first tour, wasn't it?
There's a compilation album.
There is. I think it's on. Is it on Spotify?
I think it is.
It might be.
Yeah. It was 2012.
2012 she had like and that was a different act on literally every date, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah. And then subsequent tours, she did a similar thing, invited various people back, of which we were included. Yeah. And then, at the end of all that, 2015, there was a showcase that she organised for everybody to play in front of her friends in the industry, basically.
Yeah, I think...
Yeah, we met a couple of publishers.
We did.
That night, and it was suggested that we have a go writing some songs together.
I mean, we'd already, because I remember seeing you at the sound check and thinking, oh,
yeah, we'd had
that was
a bit of a jam, a bit of a jam backstage, and
yeah,
like everyone trying out everybody's guitars and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then a few days later,
came here.
Yeah.
And we
this
wrote
very room.
We wrote Isabella, I think. Well, and A Lovely Day was the first.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, what was the very first one? I'm not sure. We must have it somewhere.
I was going to say, I think
Isabella was a little later on.
Was it?
Cause
I'm sure A Lovely Day for Doing Nothing
City
was
Blue.
Was City Blue the first one?
Painted City Blue, yeah.
Yeah. And then I think we did 3 in that first day, right?
Yeah.
We did City Blue,
yeah.
Lovely Day for Doing Nothing, and...
Might have been Beaten Track, maybe?
Oh, it might have been.
Hold On, perhaps?
No, it wasn't Hold On that early, was it?
Don't know.
Isabella wasn't far behind, though.
No, it wasn't far behind.
We were just going to write, really, weren't we?
Yeah, yeah. They just asked us to write some songs and send them over.
And we...
and yeah, but then probably just ended up goofing around on guitars for a bit. And
I think there was a lot of that.
Fun, you know.
That's it, and it was first, yeah, and it was kind of, it was very easy.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Just like...
Yeah, yeah, I actually remember that quite vividly.
Yeah, because I do remember we wrote 3 songs, and with the harmony thing, I remember, because we tried it, we'd written the song, and it's like, we should try this with some harmonies. Yeah. And so then we just did some harmonies.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay, well, that was really easy.
Yeah. Well, if we're going to do some harmonies, we might as well harmonise the whole thing.
Yeah. And then, yeah, and like guitar parts as well. It's just like, well, cool. I mean, I'll go here, you go there. And,
yeah.
You know, when you play with other guitar players, sometimes, you know, there's a lot of treading on...
competing for space.
Yeah, that's right. You know, with people... And that just wasn't... And isn't, you know, hasn't been a thing, which is...
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, nice. But yeah, no, but it was very, very easy from the get-go with that, you know, arrangements, vocally, guitar-wise and stuff. It just kind of just sat, didn't it?
Mm.
What was the first time you played live? Well,
back your birthday, wasn't it?
It was my birthday.
It was.
In 2015. We supported Joan Armour Trading.
We did.
It was after she'd done the showcase, but that she still had a few dates left of the tour, and I'd been booked in to do it solo before we met, and I got in touch and said, oh, you know, me and Jimmy have been writing some songs, is it all right if we do it as a duo? And she of course said yes, and we went, drove up to Blackpool, to the Blackpool Grand.
It's still there.
Yeah. And played, was it 8 songs?
8 songs that we didn't know.
Yeah, like we really didn't know them at all because we'd just written them.
Yeah, we still had lyric sheets on the floor.
Yeah, like all over the floor, because we used to sit down before we could afford straps.
Yeah.
And we had lyric sheets all over the floor.
1,200 people or whatever, 1,000 people.
Yeah, it was a lot. And it was very nerve-wracking. Yeah. It was one of those theatres where, from the stage, you can't see the audience at all. You're just looking out into a black void, like those old kind of Victorian places tend to be.
Yeah, but you can tell they're there.
You tell they're there, because thankfully they clapped. But at the sound check, it was before I lost weight. Little note there. But we were doing the sound check, and Joan came to watch and listen to the sound check, and she was sitting at the back of the theatre, and she went, all right, sounds great, guys, but it looks a little bit off. Jimmy, can you come forwards a bit? So Jimmy moved forward a bit,
shuffled forward
on the chair, and she went, okay, Ben, can you move back a bit? So I moved back a bit, and she was basically trying to get the perspective so that we looked like we were the same size, which meant that we ended up about 8 feet apart in distance, and we're like, she went, no, that looks great. Like,
but now we couldn't see the
lyrics.
See the lyrics.
That didn't work. But it was a good gig.
Yeah, it was a great gig.
Yeah,
it was good. Did we sell many CDs? Did we have CDs at that point? I can't remember.
I don't think we did.
No.
Certainly not of our own.
I think we maybe had
stuff.
We maybe had like our solo stuff, and we were like, if you play them both at the same time on different systems, you know, you can hear it. But that was yet to come.
Yeah, cool first gig though.
It was a great first gig. Yeah.
Okay, why a folk duo?
I mean, it's a natural kind of association, really. If you two of you play acoustic guitars and sing, it's naturally going to sound within that folky realm, you know.
That's it. I think it's that's exactly it. It's I don't know. And it's where we found a kind of audience with those people as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's something we necessarily set out to become or to do, but I think it's like, you know, when we toured with Ralph McTell, who's very much everyone's idea of the kind of archetypal folk singer, and he doesn't sing any folk songs. And I remember talking to him about it when we were on tour, and he was saying, well, you know, I've never played traditional folk songs, but he's always...
I write songs and I play acoustic guitar.
Yeah, basically, that's it. And it's the kind of the fans of folk music also enjoy what we do, which is really nice. And it's, you know, because we've done things like the tour with Ralph McTell and the tour with Fairport Convention.
Natural association.
Yeah, it's a natural association, and you know, I listen to folk music. I like folk music.
They're generally quite an open-minded bunch of people as well, folk audiences.
That is true. Yeah.
In terms of, you know, accepting of different styles within that big genre.
Yeah. You're quite right. Well, I think you've got certainly in like the UK, the traditional folk scene since the 60s, I would say, when there was the folk revival, has been like the kind of traditional folk club scene, which I used to do when I was a teenager and stuff, and we've done a bit of since, is that very broad church where you have the floor spots, which are open to anyone, and then you have the support slots, which are maybe people who've done a floor spot, and then once you've done a couple of floor spots, then you get to, you know, once you've done a couple of supports, then you get your headline slot. So there's the kind of the stepping stones of the way kind of into the folk world. And yeah, like you say, anyone with an acoustic instrument particularly seems to be welcomed with open arms.
Yeah.
And because we ended up playing acoustic.
Mostly, yeah. We've got a full electric rock and roll band.
We have. But we've got the full acoustic band as well now, which is a lot of fun. It's the same guys.
Yeah. Same band. Same band, different gear.
But I think, yeah, particularly when we got these as to kind of cement the folk duo vibe.
Yeah.
See, very folky.
Very
folky.
Yeah. Also, we're really big fans of raffles.
We do love a raffle.
Good raffle.
Another very important tradition of the British folk scene is the raffle. Good. Deep dive in. Is there anything else about that? I don't think that's probably all of those questions. How long is that? Let's have a look. And there's half an hour. That's probably enough, right?